Who was Willis? I love primary sources, but I have not yet found a primary source that even suggests who this Willis was. Until I do, I'm not going to repeat second-hand information about who he might have been. The earliest primary source that I have seen that uses the Willis name is an exact plan of the fortifications of Gibraltar held by the British Library and dated 1723. On the map, Key 1 is labelled Willis's Batteries, whereon are mounted 17 guns. This key indicates 3 drawn lines at points along the edge of what is obviously Willis's Plateau. This tells us that, whoever Willis was, he was definitely in Gibraltar before 1723. On my first visits to Willis's Plateau in 2017, I was ignorant of, and had no reason to suspect, that the history of the plateau was more complicated than the 4 obviously 20th century gun emplacements. On those early visits to the plateau, I was more interested in the view from the edge of the plateau than the history of the structures on it. However, during my 6 months in Gibraltar in 2023, I became deeply intrigued by the plateau, as I began to realize that some of the structures on the plateau seemed to be out of place. That is, evidently being much older than the concrete structures of the 4 20th century gun emplacements. Surprisingly, the history of the batteries on Willis's Plateau covers at least the whole of the British period, and frequent changes have been made throughout that entire period. That makes the history of the batteries on Willis's Plateau much more complicated than I could have guessed at on those early visits.